4, 3, 2, 1.
Now I'm ready. Now I'm ready.
Welcome everyone to our sub-budget committee. This is a meeting right before our board meeting on May 20th. And this allows an opportunity for our trustees to ask questions on our upcoming board agenda. So I'll allow the trustees to introduce themselves, and then we'll go with staff introductions.
Myself, hi, Ann Crosby. I'm a school board trustee.
Michelle Burke, school board trustee.
Okay. And now we can have a staff introduce themselves.
Robbie Pascual, Director of Accounting.
Kelly McMahon, Director of Facilities.
Sorry, Raisa Basi, Director of Budget Audit Attendance.
Thank you. And I'm Raul Zamora, Acting Superintendent. So I'll hand over the meeting to our trustees to ask questions to our staff.
Thank you. And if you correct me if I'm wrong, it seems effective if we just go through sequentially, right? And then if we have any questions on any of the items, we can ask that. So I think starting with consent, I know I have a couple questions. So my first one is related to it's 11.2 and 11.3 with the pre-qualifying of firms, which is fine. And do you have any questions before 11.2 and 11.3? Okay. So Kelly, maybe you can just help me understand what exactly should the protocol be, because it seems we have inconsistencies in our timelines with when we approve a pool of qualifying firms.
Well, the reason that so first of all, there is no protocol that I've been able to find that's in place. So that's one thing that we are doing now. Second, it's been more than 6 years since your last architectural pool was done, so it's time. Usually when you have bond programs, you rotate about every 2 to 3 years, just so that enough firms have variety and opportunity, and you have different skill levels that are able to participate in your program. Same with construction management firms. You usually do it every 2 to 3 years because most projects are anywhere from 18 to 28 or 30 months long. And you get to see what their level of performance is during that stretch of time. And in the event you're not happy, it gives you an opportunity to get another fresh pool of people that you'll have an opportunity to choose from. The one reason that I chose to do both of them right now is that we're getting ready to go into another grouping of projects. And I didn't feel the pool that we had currently was diverse enough and had satisfied the district to the level that they were looking for with what they had done so far. So I talked with administration and we all agreed that yes, it's best for us to go ahead and get another fresh group of people. And so that's what we're doing.
When you say diverse enough, what do you mean?
Well, when I looked at the firms, they all had done school work, but a lot of it was community college work or Southern California schools. And I think it's really important for us to have local firms that service our local area and understand, one, the culture, politics, and nuances of Northern California schools versus Southern California schools. So that was a big red flag for me. The other thing too, I'm really strong on local business. And a lot of the businesses, they have satellite offices in our zip code, and their corporate offices are outside of our area being zip codes that touch Fremont. And so I wanted to encourage those local firms that are in our back door to actually participate and be able to do that work.
Thank you. I think that's important, especially because I think it was our understanding that we were trying to use people as close to Freeman as possible. So
Right.
it's really disconcerting to hear that's not the case, but I know sometimes it has to do with who's bidding at the time. So
Right.
maybe good reason for it, but
Right.
I appreciate doing that.
Thank you.
Likewise, in fact, I felt like you must have replayed a former board meeting because we said that exact same thing, that we want to keep it as local as possible, both for, the contracts and the vendors that are being used, et cetera. And, it's from top to bottom. So appreciate you acknowledging that. The other question related to that is, sorry, I still struggle with the idea of a construction management firm, because we have you and we also have Banner. And so what is, delineate for me why it's important to have this extra level of construction management when we already have a lot of expertise in this process?
So when you think of, let's see, what's a good way visually? I'm a visual person. I like to explain things visually. So think of a big umbrella or a big canopy, right? So if we had a big canopy that we put on the lawn, we have a really large canopy that covers everything. That's my role. Now, underneath the canopy, we have people who are going to be directing and managing all the different tables and things that are going on underneath the canopy. I and my staff don't have the capacity to manage everything as well as manage at a micro level. So Banner is doing all the things that our Fremont staff don't have the capabilities to do, just because we're very lean in terms of the 3 people we have in facilities. We have other resources in terms of other departments, but they're responsible for what they do, kind of what's their expertise. So Vanner is providing me and the district with a level of expertise that I can, if I need, whatever I need, they have the ability technically as well as management wise to do it. And the construction management teams, you drill down even further, they're the ones who are on the ground managing the contractors day to day. They're the guys that dig down in the weeds. They're the ones who get the phone calls at 7 o'clock at night saying, hey, there's a flood somewhere, who's responsible? And then they drill that information back up to us, and we then report out to you all. So it's a, kind of like that seven bean salad layered kind of approach, where I'm able to see everything, but I'm not able to reach down all the way to dig in the weeds unless I absolutely have to. And I think for us to have that capability, it allows us to do the planning that we're supposed to be doing, to do the oversight on budget that we're supposed to be doing, and to help you all be educated so that we plan, our 1 year, our 5 year, our 10 year, our long-term plans. And you have my full attention for that. Because if I was managing all that stuff, I would never have an opportunity to be able to sit down and talk with you all and have an intelligent conversation of what planning was, because I'd be so focused on the day-to-day operations of the individual projects that I just don't have the capacity to do.
I appreciate that, and I understand that. I think what I struggle with is that those middle layers of our cake, or whatever, however you want to visualize it. You with the canopy, but then we have Banner, and then we have all these different construction management companies with whom we're contracting to implement the work. And I guess my question is, why do we have 2 layers there? Why not make it a single layer cake as opposed to a double layer cake?
Well, because Vanner provides an extension of my planning capabilities, my long range planning, short term, and they also provide that level of extension of staff that Fremont needs. So like, for instance, today, we had 9 payments of vendors that came back from, the county for payment. I had 4 calls that I was on. And so I was able to call on 2 people. Hey, I need you to go in the office. You need to issue and get these things processed out. They were able to actually do that for me and also create the transactions that go along with those payments and document it and file it without me having to actually do it. I just knew that it happened, but the particulars of it, they actually executed. And the same projects that those payments were received from, there's construction managers who are on site right now dealing directly with the contractor and all the issues that are happening on a day-to-day basis, and not, so it's almost like they're one removed, but they're still engaged, but the construction managers really handle the day-to-day weed stuff. Whereas the banner folks and the project program management people, they're my extension of staff that help me manage and maintain our level of viability that we need to function.
Can I ask a question along these lines? So what is the cost of the contract? Do you know off the top of your head, Raisa, Robbie, for Banner?
What
No,
was
I
that,
don't
ma'am?
know.
So what is the cost of the contract that we have with Banner?
I don't know that on hand.
I will find out. But roughly, the last I checked, and this was a cursory view, it's around $4 million, give or take. And I think we're only about 42 or 43% expended on that contract. And their contract, I believe, ends in 2023, if not sooner. So,
Okay.
so 20.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know, because I mean, it seems to me, I understand the value of having those layers.
Mhm.
At some point, there's enough work that it may be warranted to have somebody in-house doing it and paying somebody in-house,
I
as
absolutely
opposed
agree.
to, I mean, you know, not to say that I wouldn't want to have Banner. I'm not saying that at all, but you know, it becomes very expensive to have
Sure.
individual companies coming in to do pieces instead of just hiring somebody to do it
So one of,
if we have enough work.
so one of the things that Marcus and I are actually working on collectively is looking at where that transition point can occur. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think that we as a district are extremely lean in terms of the staff that we have. In fact, we're too lean.
Yes, we are.
You
Yes,
know,
we are.
we actually need to have probably 4 or 5 people in facilities that we don't have. And so if we can strategically, as we're going through finishing these projects, look at hiring 1 or 2 project managers who can kind of overlay and transition, have a learning curve where they're learning and knowing what's going on. And that, you, like you said, if we have enough work that we can support it, we can then have that transition occur. And that's the goal in having them create standards and creating the documentation that we haven't updated in probably 10 or 15 years. And so we're kind of ramping up to do exactly what you guys are talking about, so that by the time we get to that transition point, we will have all the things that we need in place already established and synchronized, so that we can have our own in-house folks take over and actually manage long-term.
Because I don't think our intention was to continue to have Banner on our payroll. It was just during this project for Measure E.
Sure, sure. No, I wholeheartedly agree. And I'm
Right.
a firm believer that we should be able to do everything ourselves, but sometimes we do fall short.
And just to add, of course, we all know that we've had Measure E now since 2014. So, you know, the length of this bond, we've had somebody with whom we've contracted Banner currently. And then this is not a criticism of Banner. It's just a question of the process and a question of how many layers are we expending money on when every dollar is precious to go towards the project itself rather than the managing of the project. And so I constantly struggle, and I think, you know, I see Ann nodding her head. I think I constantly
So
struggle.
one of the things that we've done over the last 2 months is, oh, I think she's,
I've lost Kelly.
Looks like she's frozen.
While she's trying to reconnect, should we go to another question?
Yeah, Michelle, what is your next?
Sorry. Well, you know, it's kind of along these same lines of the next one is 11.4 with the Centerville project inspectors. And just, oh, this is coming back to you. You know, you're approving this now, 1 and 2, and then phase 3 is coming back. And I think that's what happens is we get these things piecemeal, and we always feel like we're just expending that much more for this next phase and this next phase. And I'm trying to get a handle on why all these processes are happening the way they happen, because it just feels like there's so many administrative layers rather than actual work layers. So that's where my struggle, frustration is. And then
Maybe a flow chart.
Hi there, I'm back.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. You can be expending, or what you can be expecting at every point, so it doesn't feel like so much is continuously added, that it can be anticipated maybe.
I appreciate the comment. You will be getting phase 3 at, you know, some point. We're bringing this back at some point. And when we do get it back, it says you approved, you know, phase 1 and 2 back in May of 2020. I appreciate that because it does help jog the memory for those of us who don't remember those things so clearly. But it's that feeling of not having the whole picture. That is frustrating and somewhat not feeling like we have not the whole picture, and so not really having a grasp of how much we're spending, and, you know, amendment A, amendment B, phase 1, phase 2. So I know it's complicated, and trying to simplify it can be a challenge, but it's I think worth that education of us to understand why all these layers exist.
Well, it's my understanding, and I am still learning myself as to how this program was structured initially. But with the lease-back methodology that we have chosen to deliver these first groups of contracts, they in essence are a design build. So when you do a design build project, you actually bid the work out at around 55% complete. So that other 45 pretty much is unknown and is actually being co-designed with your builder and your design team to get you to your magic number. So you've already established, hey, I only have X amount of dollars to spend, but I want to get started and I want to get the highest and best use of my dollars by starting this process early and securing a contractor who can guarantee me that I can build it according to budget. That's the intention of a lease-back. Because we are a school district and require DSA approval, we also felt, for the sake of expediency, to break up the projects into increments based on the type of work that's being done. So for instance, we have our demolition and our site work already approved by DSA because it's not actually impacting the building. But the building itself is still under review and is being reviewed by a different set of individuals that will give us authorization to say, yes, you guys can go forth and build. So what you guys have been seeing are these various scopes of work that have been broken up into increments or phases, and they've been submitted as to expedite the schedule. And unfortunately for us, it hasn't really helped our cause, in that we haven't really been expedited. We've actually been delayed in many instances because one, the code cycle hit midway through us doing a lot of these designs and construction projects. Well, of course, we're in the middle of our shelter in place, and that affects the process of review. And we have not been very good in terms of relaying the message of what the needs are of the school sites to the design team and the builders. And so what's happening on many of these projects is that the documentation that they were provided as built, yes, they're required to confirm and validate in the field, but the historical knowledge and the historical sort of wealth of information that you have from long-term people who have been in the district is not necessarily there for some of these things that we're working on right now. And so a lot of situations have occurred where they've gone out in the field and it's like, oh wait, we don't have the correct underground drawings, and what the city has is outdated, and what was on file with the school district doesn't actually match what's physically in the field. So those kinds of situations cause delays as well as cost increases, because now you're expecting one situation and you're ending up with something that's totally different than what you expected. So
I feel like this is a can of worms that we've opened up, which warrants a lot more discussion, because for one, I can't really accept the COVID-19 as a valid excuse, because that's very recent. I mean, that's the last 2 months. And so we knew as of March 13th that there'd be delays, but everything that you were indicating from prior to that has me concerned that you're alluding to perhaps inefficient ways of doing business. The lease back was something we instituted with Horner, and we didn't do it with Walters, but we were told it was recommended that we should go with lease back because that would be the most efficient way. And what I'm hearing you say, I hope I'm interpreting correctly, is that it's in fact not the most efficient way.
And what you just described is not my understanding of lease back.
Right.
okay.
So I think that there's, I think what you're bringing to the table now, Kelly, is a different understanding, again, than what Trustee Crosby and I certainly have, and I can't speak for the other board members. But I totally agree that historical information is very important. And I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but you're relatively new, but we did have history there for a while. And I would assume that because Vanner was in place, there's history that's carried through the changes in FUSD side. Those changes may have happened with personnel, but Vanner has always been there. So I'm feeling.
Well, I'm not sure. How long has Vanner been? How long have they been? Because wasn't Harris before Vanner? Weren't they the ones that you all had to start your program?
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure I understand, because I was under the impression Vanner has only been around for about 2 years.
I think it's been longer, Anne. Correct me if I'm wrong.
That's my understanding as well. But also, we used to have, prior to the person who was prior to you, we had somebody who was with the district for a very long time.
Okay.
Was wonderful at her job, but I think it was a lot of institutional knowledge that we lost when she left. So we are having to build that up, and I appreciate what you're saying about moving forward, how we need to be capturing some of this, because it does end up saving us money in the long run if we're doing proper documentation.
Correct. Correct.
One of the areas that Kelly did start, it was part of the Friday update. She did analyze the leaseback option and what inefficiencies are happening there. So maybe I need to bring that back again, send it to the board, and for consideration as maybe a board discussion item, because she has analyzed that and what's happened in the past. And I was looking at board docs. We did enter a contract with Vanner back in 2016. So they've been
Okay.
around for quite a while.
Okay, so they've been, and I understand they've had quite a few changes in staffing as well. So as with all, when the historical folks leave, you end up losing quite a bit of information. But here nor there, the reason, and this is just my opinion, and based on my very limited analysis and short time that I've been here, with the leaseback contracts for school districts, they are very good tools to use in large, complicated, multifaceted projects. For schools construction, yes, we have multiple facets of our program, but each school is its own little individual project. And they're not that complicated in terms of sophistication of the structure of the contractual agreements that you enter in with the different vendors. And so it's not, we are not benefiting by having a leaseback project delivery method in place right now, because every project that we've used it on, we have not been on time, nor have we stayed within budget, and we have not had tight controls on how the dollars are spent when it comes to contingencies, change orders, and amendments. And so my recommendation that Raul was talking about is for us to kind of withdraw from that and revert back to our traditional delivery method of design bid build or design build, where we have very strict control and ability to monitor our cost and our schedules, because we are totally in control of the design, and we're not relying on the contractor nor the designer to actually interpret or give their best guess of what our intentions are. We will actually have the ability to control, this is what I want for my school from A to Z. And this is all the money that I have to spend it on from A to Z. And here, Mr. Contractor, you bid on it and tell me what it's going to cost me to build everything. Versus, well, here's phase 1, here's phase 2, here's phase 3. We can still break it up into phases, but when you actually bid the job, you're bidding the entire project as a whole, and you have a very clear picture of what your expenses are. And the other thing that is very useful, if we are to shift gears, I have a real problem with the owner's contingency, the builder contingency, and then a general contingency on the project. Because what happens is that contractors look at that and they say, oh, contingency, I'm just going to add that to my profit, and I'm going to use the owner's contingency first before I even touch anything that I would be responsible for. And so that's what's been happening on our projects when I've been doing our review, is that every minor change, every design change, every scope change that the district initiates, it's been assigned to the owner's contingency. And the builder never uses their contingency until
Kelly, you need to pause for a minute. You need to take a breath, because Ann and I are both having reactions that I think we need.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I find this extremely disturbing, because the whole thing with leaseback was not that it would be broken into phases. It's that you are bidding the entire project. And if you can't do that, and you need to have, for whatever reason, you need to have an exception on what you bid, then you need to come to us and ask, are you willing to pay for this? Because this was not in the scope, and therefore I didn't include it in the cost of doing the building. And it sounds to me that what we expected was happening is not what we've been getting. And so I find that extremely disturbing. And I don't know that we can resolve this here, but I think to have Dr. Zamora bring it back as a bigger discussion, I think could be very important, especially because even though you're new to this process with Fremont Unified, Banner has been with us for a very long time. And if that has been happening under Banner, then I have an issue with Banner.
And
I
as
would
I said
also like-
before, go
I
ahead,
would
I'm
like
sorry.
to add or question your use of the word owner contingency. We've never phrased it like that. We had the project contingency and we had the program contingency, but we've never used or heard that term before. So that feels to me like some, again, unfamiliar and perhaps misleading as to what the purpose of a contingency might be.
So the purpose of the contingency in the leaseback is that the builder puts in a buffer and says, okay, I know I have a budget of $3 million. I'm going to go ahead and set aside 300,000 for my mistakes, to catch anything that I miss. I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. We, as the owner, being FUSD, we own the project. So we put in a project contingency to say, here's our 10% that we're setting aside, that we're going to say, here, we know there are going to be a few things that are missed. We're going to go ahead and put this pot of money aside so that we have funds available that we can draw from that will not impact downstream all the other projects that we have budgeted out of this very large pot of money that we're drawing from. So when the builder makes a mistake and say there's an oversight on something and, oh, well, you know, we forgot this handrail over here. Yeah, it's clearly called out in the plans. I'll go ahead and take it from my contingency. You guys are not going to see that expense because he's drawing from funds that he's already included in his contract that do not require approval because he's just drawing down from funds he's already established within the budget for him to make that mistake. So that's what's been going on, is that they are drawing down off of these contingent dollars. And then when those are all exhausted, they come back and say, oh, okay, we're out of money. And here's a really big item that I don't want to pay for. So I'm going to make the district pay for it because it's something that's required for us to finish the project. And so I use Horner as a great example because Horner had a lot of staffing changes, and also the structure of the agreement. There were two back doors for McCarthy to use, and they're fully exercising it. And so we are finishing that project, but we are not in the best place that we need to be as we go about finishing it. And so I don't want to take up all the time on this talking about this today, but this is definitely worth us having a discussion and a workshop for me to kind of walk you guys through where we are in real time with all these projects. And I apologize that I froze earlier when I was talking about DSA. And I agree with you, COVID-19 does not make up for all of the things that were wrong prior to COVID-19. But what's happening with DSA right now, as it is going to impact our projects, all of our projects that were set to be reviewed, approved, or executed the months of March, April, or May are all moved as far as September, October, and November. So that's how big of a schedule impact and what that does for us, because we do have the structures that are in different increments from our site work. I'm having them resequence the work so that we don't have any work stoppage while the design of the buildings are still being reviewed and will be executed hopefully by the end of the summer. So that impacts us in a manner in that everything that we would have been able to do this summer in sequence Now we're shifting the sequence around to take advantage of, hey, we've got these approved things now. Let's go ahead and get started. But it's going to push everything forward. So just imagine a timeline. Whatever was there,
Kelly,
you just push it.
Kelly, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt because you're
No.
right. We are running out of time.
Sure.
And I think what you've said is causing enough bells to, the alarms to go off that you're absolutely right. We need to bring this back. So I'm sure Dr. Zamora has made 10 notes of that already. And appreciate your candidness in identifying where there have been mistakes and or errors and or where I'm, in my words, where we've been taken advantage of. So we do need to have this as a board discussion. I appreciate you participating in this meeting. And I'm sorry that I'm cutting you off. It's just there are a few other things that I
No,
want
that's fine.
we got
That's fine.
to before 6 o'clock.
No, that's absolutely fine. I'd be happy to. I actually have the questions Marcus just forwarded to me, so I'm going to make sure that I answer those in detail for you all and provide those for you all before Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you. I admit I'm a little bit thrown for a loop here. So,
Yeah, to say the least.
yeah. Well, and so moving on, which it's hard to move on from this, is 11.6, which is the AB 1200. And I'm just I just want to understand better the numbers that are in that document. But I should have asked you, Anne, did you have something on 11.5 before we
that's
go
good.
on to 11?
I don't think I have anything until the budget for COVID discussion.
So that would be the question for Rais on the AB 1200. You're on mute.
Thank you.
Sorry. What exactly is the question, Dr. Burke? Because there are so many numbers in this document, and it's not the easiest document to understand and follow.
I agree.
And another thing, they counted it. They made this document very inflexible. Before this year, we could add lines here to make it easy to understand, but now it's very rigid. We cannot do too many things with that. But the bottom line with this AB 1200 is we're trying to show that at second interim report, we had a designation of $1.8 million to afford increase. As a result of this proposed offer to teachers union, we are going to use that designation, and our fund balance is not going down because we already had designation in place. So county already knows that. I sent an email to Raul Perungao, and he accepted the fact that our positive certification is going to be positive thing for this proposed offer, because that does not reduce our fund balance. Within this document, there's a page, and there are so many pages. I'm trying to see which page would be easier to follow.
So I think, and you probably received this, and I'm wanting to be clear. Let's just go to the very first. It says page 1, fiscal impact, and it's the one with all the. It's the first page with all of the columns, and it says on top public disclosure of CBA in accordance with AB 1200. So what I want, so I apologize if this is like simple math to everybody else and that it's failing me, but I see salary schedule, number 1, the first row, and the 187, 1.8. And I see that that there's 0 for this year, then year 2, which is next year, we have the 0.56.
Correct. Yes.
So that's when it's being implemented. This is a negotiation for next year.
Yes.
Okay. And the value of that is 1,048,325. Okay.
and then we add benefits on that, and those benefits, statutory benefits, are mentioned in box number 3 or row number 3.
Yes,
248,298.
I see that. And so that's the so that's what brings us to the 0.59%,
Correct.
correct, in number 3. So part of me wants to continue going down, but I first want to go to the right for year 3.
Okay.
Why is it that a 0.56% becomes doubled in year 3? Because
Because it's
go ahead.
compounded of two years, because in year 2 the cost becomes the cost in the first year multiplied by 2 years, because that builds into the salary schedules. There's an ongoing increase, so there's twice as much in the second year in 21-22.
I think where I'm confused is that we've never, or maybe I'm misunderstanding. I had always thought, we always knew once we offer something that's ongoing, that's just what it is, and it's absorbed into future budgets, but we don't necessarily see it as doubling of a doubling of it. So I'm trying to understand, once we put that 0.56% in, and we add that 1,048,000 into the budget, that should flatten then for the following year. I'm not sure why it doubles the following year. I'm having a hard time grasping that.
So what would be an easy example?
Let me try. Is it because of the base year is 1920 and you're adding to add 2 years worth of salary for 2021 and 21-22?
But I think that maybe that's the crux of my question. Why? Once it's added into 2021, why are we doubling it in 21-22? The way this reads to me, and what I'm struggling to understand, is it looks like we're giving 0.56% next year, and the following year we're giving another 1.12%. It doesn't look like it's doubling. It looks like we are increasing, that we're doubling the number rather than the budget. It feels like, the way this reads, and maybe it's just a result of the way the document is laid out, but it looks like, so we're giving them a 0.56%, and then in year 3 we're giving an additional 1.12% because the numbers have doubled. So I feel like it's misleading, because 0.56 is what we're giving this year, and that's carrying over. It's not doubling. It's just, it's that 1.48 that's going to carry on and not necessarily double. So
let me take a try at this thing like this. This document shows a fiscal impact. So the fiscal impact in the first year is, for example, if you give me 5% increase this year, which is $5. So in the first year, the fiscal impact is $5. In the second year, you have to show both years what you received the first year, $5, and then the second year is also going to add another $5 of becomes in the second year $10.
If that would make sense to me if in that column the header was year 3, 2020, 2022, then you would be accounting for both years. But in this, you're not. You're accounting for 1 year, correct?
No, the third year is the second year. The first year of fiscal impact is 2021. Suppose that's $5. 21-22 is $5 for the first year, 2021, and then you are going to give another increase in 21.
Yeah, you're talking about an accumulation, but according to this is only accounting for 21-22 according to the header. It doesn't show an accumulation. So I think that's where the confusion comes. If the header said 2020 and 2022, all the way through 2022, you would expect an accumulation.
So this is how we have always presented, and that's how county expects us to present. So that's the reason we're doing it. This is not the easiest document to understand. I completely understand that. It was developed maybe 29 years ago, very long time ago. And that is the method of presentation in this document. Because this is the fiscal impact in the second year, which is accumulation of first year plus second year.
Yes, except that first year one is nothing. So it really isn't.
No, we're going to consider the first year is 2021. That would be the first year. Because we're too late for 1920 and the contract is for 2021 fiscal year. So we are considering that as the first year of increase. And by the way, ACO is going to review this document. And if they do not agree with that, they are going to, of course, notify us that. But that's the method of presentation they prefer and they're used to.
Okay, I won't belabor the point.
Just doing a time check. We have about 10 minutes.
And I apologize that I've kind of
No, it's fine.
jumped in. I had also wanted to ask about the Personnel Commission budget. And did you have questions on that? I can hold on my Personnel Commission questions if you have something you really want to talk about within the context of the other items on the agenda.
No, it's fine. Go ahead.
I apologize. With the Personnel Commission, I'm not remembering it from previous years, so it's probably my memory. The who is the 0.5 and who is the 5. I didn't realize that we were paying full salaries, and I didn't realize that we were that we had this extensive of a budget, and I also didn't realize that we had contracted services. So I'm trying to understand what are contracted services in the context of the Personnel Commission.
So because we're a merit district, we have to identify staff that works, that generates all the classified actions. So if we did not have a merit district, that budget would still be the same, or whatever. Let's say it's 500,000. It would still be the same. But since we're a merit district, we have to call out. We use this amount of money to do transactions for classified actions, the hiring, all the reports that you see. So that's the only part to that piece of the Personnel Commission. It would still exist even if we did not have the merit district. So we're just calling that out. You're on mute.
So what you're saying is that these are when I think of the Personnel Commission, I'm thinking of the people that we appoint to the Personnel Commission. But what you're saying is it's the actual staff members in HR who are doing this work.
Correct.
Not what we're paying, or not what the 3 people are that we appoint to be on the Personnel Commission.
Yeah, and it's just a process where they have to approve the budget, then it comes to the board for approval, then it goes to the county for approval. But that cost would still remain the same. It's just identified as the Personnel Commission budget.
The Personnel Commission is they only get a stipend, so And right now, the budget is they're proposing is $1,600 for the personal commission stipends for the three personal commissioners.
Now I understand. I wasn't clear on, again, the differentiation between the personnel commissioners that we're appointing as opposed to staff that are doing this work anyway. So I now understand it's in tandem, that it's the people who are doing the work have to work with the personnel commission. And so it's this overall budget, but a lot of that, as with our general budget, 91% goes to salaries. So I understand now why a lot of that money is actually in salaries or benefits, because they are employees of the district.
Right. And as far as the contracting services, we do contract out for a person to hear disciplinary hearings. I think that's really about it.
Actually, sir, I actually look into the details of it. We pay something for the ASAP system. I think part of the classified system that we do for
SOP, yeah.
yes.
And also, I think we pay for TB testing from this account.
Also, well, then I'm incorrect.
All of the contracted services.
So then that's right. It's ASOP and then the TB testing. So the ASOP is the attendance for employees, for all employees. Partial of that comes out of the personnel commission budget.
And we actually do not spend the whole $61,000. That is only budgeted.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that clarification. So on to regular, we only have a few minutes, but regular agenda items. You, Anne, had something for from LCAP, or was it from the May revise?
And the budget piece, sorry. Where it is. 15.1. On page 3 of the attachment, it refers to school site health centers. And to the best of my knowledge, we have no health centers. So what is this referring to?
Which one, ma'am?
School site health centers.
And it's on what agenda item, ma'am?
15.1. SB 117 recommended budget.
I'm showing it right now.
I think Marcus might be using that term for the nurses.
He needs to be really careful about the
Right.
titles that he uses, especially on presentations, because school site health centers are a whole different conversation. And so if he's talking about nurses, then that's different. And is this across the district? All of our nurses at all our school sites, or is it? Yeah, so I have more questions about exactly what this refers to.
My understanding on that one, ma'am, is that Marcus, the business services team, was actually working with Cheryl Knight, the health coordinator or nurse coordinator. So that is things that was brought up by Cheryl Knight, looking at district-wide.
Okay, that makes sense. And then there were questions about whether or not there's technology as far as the laptops. Now, I understand that the laptops the teacher might want to use for staff, or that they might be more complex than the ones, the Chromebooks that we have at school sites. But there was questions asked about, are we utilizing the Chromebooks at sites? Either for students or for, and my question to that is whether or not they have cameras.
So I know that the Chromebooks have been issued out to students from the sites. And as far as the have cameras, I'm not sure if they do or not. I don't know if Rais or Robbie would know that detail, but we can definitely ask that question on Wednesday. I would imagine so, because that's the only way that the Google
Yeah,
Meet
that would be the
would,
purpose. And if they're not, if they don't, then they can't be utilized.
Yeah.
Students for distance learning, then.
My recollection was that Lucas had said they all would be ready with a camera in order to, that would be the only effective way of delivering distance learning. So that's my recollection.
And that's my understanding as well, that all the Chromebooks and all the laptops have cameras installed. They're pre-installed.
Well, we know that some of them haven't, because the ones the board have not had. So that was my understanding, was that there were some staff, at least, who had computers that were assigned to them that didn't have a built-in camera. So, whether or not they're worthwhile computers, but they lack that ability, is sort of two different things. It's whether it's a laptop that goes, into recycling, or whether it's usable but not for this purpose, I guess. And I think that the only other thing on this for me is that we have signed a contract for $76,000 without it ever coming to the board, at least just as a notification that this was happening, is a little surprising.
My understanding on that one, ma'am, is that because we already have the an agreement or the service, that they're just going to add that to our bill.
You mean with T-Mobile?
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of agreement did we already have with them?
Probably there are our I'm not sure, ma'am, but they're